This program is brought to you by Emory University.
All right, so what I'm going to give you today is I want to take the mystery out of interviewing, and I want to give you all the structures and the formulas of an interview for two big reasons. The first reason is I want you to feel like when you're asked a question in an interview and you are unclear what you should answer or how to answer, that there's going to be a theory called the STAR interview theory, that's going to pop into your head, and you're going to know where to slot that information so you don't feel like you're talking in circles. I'm also going to give you what is a standard interview format. And the reason I'm going to give this to you is because most interviewers don't know what they're doing. Most interviewers were told, hey, will you come sit on this committee? Or hey, you're so-and-so at this place, will you interview this person? But they're not told, ask them about this, ask them about that. And they really don't know how to open the interview, how to end the interview, what questions, what to do with a lull in conversation. The beauty of that is that means that you get to be in control of the interview. The more you can guide that interview, the more the interviewer is at ease, and then they like you, right? So it also makes you feel good because you don't feel like you're just there waiting for ping pong balls to start hitting you of all these different questions. So that's what I want to help you with today. Does that sound like a good agenda?
Yes.
And then in order to learn those, you have to practice. How does that sound? Good. Here's some fun ways to practice that. Okay, so the first thing we're going to start with is we're going to start with this format called the STAR format. The STAR format, I'm going to give you a worksheet to work on because we're all going to work on one of our stories. The idea of this is we're going to be a little bit like engineers. Is if somebody asks you a question and says, you know, this role that you're taking at the company is a leadership role. Talk to us about your leadership experience. Well, you could list a bunch of things, or you could give an actual example of a time that your leadership was put to the test, an example of when you exhibited leadership. So the way you can do that is through this simple acronym. STAR stands for situation, task, actions, and results. So if they were to say, Anne, can you talk to us about a time that you showed leadership? Because in this position, we need you to show leadership. I could say, absolutely. When I first began my job at the Goizueta Business School with the Evening MBA program, there was not a formalized career service program. So I went to the dean and said, would it be possible for me to put together a series on job search for the Evening MBA students? And she said, you sure can. We can't give you any time during the week, so if you want to do something on a Saturday and you can get people there, go right ahead. So my task was to go ahead and create career service needs for the Evening MBA students. So the first thing I did is I pulled together a few of the students who were student leaders, who had been in my office, who were the kind of proactive or really kind of outgoing students, and said, what would you need? How could this be helpful to you? And my original thoughts, it turned out, weren't exactly what their thoughts were. So I was able to tailor what I could present to what they were looking for. And one of the things that we found along the way was that the students had the greatest job opportunity in the Evening MBA program to try to be promoted within their current companies. But they weren't clear how to get that done. So what we also did was we reached out to alums. I reached out to different, even just HR professionals in their companies here in Atlanta and said, this is what we want to provide to the students. Tell me what are the missing pieces from your perspective, and then what do your companies have that they should be plugging into and working with. So we were really able to create a hybrid of here's what you could actually, resources you could use at your current job, here are ways to talk to your manager, here are other people at the company you need to network with, here's how to get people to see you in a new light now that you have this new degree. The result of it was we saw, as a program, fewer students were leaving the employer who often sponsored their degree and paid for it. They were wanting to stay with those companies because the companies were providing the advancement when the students were more ready for the advancement, not asking them to finish a degree, wait a year, then get promoted. They were able to move right into the subject matter. The other results we saw were that Other programs actually started looking at our model and started replicating aspects of it. A great result was within 2 years, we had tremendous alumni support because you had people who had been through that training saying, I know you're doing this. Who are the people who are showing up for those sessions? Who's really interested in being promoted? Hey, who's at my company in the program who I should take under my wing and help them move forward? So we got some really great tangible results from it. Okay, so you heard that story, right? Okay. The other thing I could have said, you could say, tell me about a time you exhibited leadership. Sure. I was working with the Evening MBA program, and there weren't any career services, so I took it upon myself to create a series of workshops, and it was great. The students really got some of the skills they needed to interview, and to this day they're still working on career services. Now there's actually a career services office for those students. That's what we usually say, right? What was missing in that second answer? The results. I didn't talk about, did it work? Maybe I thought I was a leader, but maybe I wasn't. Right? So results are huge. And you also, in that second answer, I would say those first answers, it's a little bit like a movie, right? It's like, so then I did this. Now what's the character going to do? Well, the character did this next. So if you're using those action steps, you're taking people through potentially sequential actions, and you really are, you're storytelling. You're painting a story for them. The interesting part with the results, too, your results should tie back to, what was your task? The task was create some career services programs for the students, so that my results need to match what that is. Sometimes, as you write out these stories, you'll realize your task might have been different. And that's okay. It's like writing a research paper backwards. It's like, oh, look, there's a lot of information on this. Okay, now I'll make a thesis. Okay, there we go. So that's what this format can help you with. Coming up with what's the situation, what's the actual task, and then what steps did you take? And remember to break those down, because that's always the interesting part. And sometimes things that people leave out, you leave out things in your story like, there was no career service, and now we have all 200 students going through the program in the fall and in the spring. So we teach 2 separate sections of it. That's a lot different than I started some workshops and I did some things. It might be sometimes you tell stories and you forget to tell that there was no budget. So everything you did through asking for donations or found objects, or you just borrowed where you needed to borrow, and you exchanged ideas, which then that's an entire set of skills that would have gotten lost. So that listing of the actions can be great for you. So I'm going to pass one of these out for each of you. And the other thing on this sheet is the 4 really common interview questions. Because if you can go in prepared with what people are going to ask you, then you can just pick around your best information depending on what they actually ask you. So the first question is, tell me about a time you exhibited leadership. And really the key word has is leadership. You always need some story that talks about leadership or management. There you go. The second one is, have you worked with a team of motivated people? So it's the tell me about, if I bring you in here, how are you going to bring people together and get positive results? The second one, or the third one, is have you worked on a team and had it not go well? Sometimes interviewers love to throw you curveballs of, talk to me about a time you worked on a team and it failed. Or talk to me about something you did that failed. Sometimes they can say, what's your weakness? Now, you can't say too much with those things, because you can't say, well, I'm a highly disorganized person. So a time where I epically failed, because immediately they're thinking, yeah, this is great, let's just write no here over there. So you have to kind of think about, how do you take something like that? How do you take a situation where it might not have gone well, but turn it so that you can show you put the effort in to try to resolve, and then list your results, which could be, I thought I was working with a team who couldn't pick a topic for the research, the joint research paper. But at the end of the day, what I found was it was actually a language barrier between some of the international students on the team and the domestic students on the team. So what I actually ended up solving was the fact that we needed to make sure that culturally everybody understood what the assignment was. That's a great outcome from a story that you're telling. It could have been about just, oh, the team can't decide on how to work together. It also doesn't have to be epic. These stories aren't going to be, I did this, and truly this is why now the world has complete peace. You know, we always think our stories aren't, maybe they're not rich enough. They are. Your stories are rich enough. Small examples work great for any one of these. Your last question, can you tell me about a significant accomplishment? You're not going to necessarily be asked just that specific question directly, but that often can come across in just them saying, why should we hire you? We're looking at 5 people for this position. What makes you the right candidate for this? And that's sort of your story of something you've done that you're pretty sure people heard it. They probably are going to think you'd be a great person to have around. And putting that into some sort of star format and listening for when in the interview can I infuse this item about myself? When can I make this something that they hear? Because I know if they hear this, this is going to make me a good candidate. If you could have those 4 answers, those 4 star stories in your back pocket, I think you can control your interview. And I think you're going to feel confident because you're going to be able to, any questions that they get, if they say, you know, we've got a volunteer committee here, and I got to tell you, the leader of the volunteer committee is, you know, that set in stone, the relationships are pretty deep, and that volunteer is, but it's having some problems with some of the volunteers. There's conflict. How would you handle that? Well, that is exactly number 3. Have you worked on the team and it didn't go well? They're not asking you to sit and do a case breakdown of, well, tell me about this person who leads the team. Well, tell me about the volunteers. Instead, you can say, well, that's interesting. You know, I do think that's sort of a natural part of any sort of nonprofit organization where you have volunteers. Let me tell you about a time when I worked on a team and we had some conflict going on. This is how I resolved it. You could then always, at the end of that story, you could say, so in your case, with the person who's leading your volunteer group, I'm sure you've tried many, many things, but I think sometimes back and forth, trial and error, you're welcome to try what I tried in my story to see if that might resolve it. Or, boy, I welcome the opportunity to try to get in there and resolve that. Sometimes new blood can make a difference with that. So does this start to make sense? All right, so I would like you to pick one of these questions, and I'd like you to take 3 minutes to quickly write one out in your star format. So pick one of your questions, and feel free to start. Sometimes it's easier to start with the actions, or sometimes it's the result. You don't have to work in a linear order. You don't have to work in a linear order. So pick a question, and I'm only going to give you a few minutes. Take 3 minutes to just start jotting things on paper. So bullet it, make some notes, see where you are. I'm going to time you. Okay, you can kind of wrap up where you are right now in that story. This is not your final version. It is not Jeopardy! Tournament of Champions Week. It's just the first time you're putting some notes on a page. Some very early notes. All right, so how's it going putting a story together in that format? Questions? What do you like? What do you dislike? Yes, sir.
Well, I went ahead and went with the one I thought would be the most difficult for me.
Okay.
The third point about how to describe working on a team and not going well.
Yes.
And I found, like, following the star format, the difficult part for me was the result and trying to find a way to explain it in the way that you did, where it's like, this is the result, but out of that we learned this. So finding a way to kind of just spin it so that you can talk about finding something to work on.
Yes. And that's bringing up a good point, that the result is not always going to be, we were aiming for gathering 10 of these things and we gathered 10. Woohoo, 100%. Mm-hmm. Often the result is, through this we learned that no one had a certain skill set. Or through this I learned I'm not good when it comes to the team, not knowing exactly what they want to do, that it's important for me to facilitate a group, but not try to be the person who people are looking at to come up with the idea. That's fine if a result is a piece of learning like that. Do you want to share your story a little bit? Just the sketches, what do you have? What's your sketch at this point?
So, and again, this is from the third point about having worked on a team and it didn't go well. The situation was we were on a team where we were trying to digitize. We were digitizing 1,000 images a day, and we were trying to double that. So that was the task. Like the task was to basically just double it. And the action was, okay, so we want twice as more. We need to work twice as hard. That was the action, and the result. The result was we didn't get 1,000. We barely got 1,500. But out of that, we learned that it wasn't so much the workload. It's just we needed to reassess the way that we were digitizing. We needed uniform standards. We needed to rethink the way that we were going about the workflow. So
All those that you just said at the end, those are your actions.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. So you've got it. So take those things and you say, so our task was we had to double the amount. We needed 2,000 images per day. What we did was we started by thinking, okay, I think we just have to work faster. And in the process of working faster, what we found as a team was that we couldn't necessarily speed up. So we looked at, well, why is this? And we saw that everybody had a different way that they were processing images. So then what did you do? And it literally is, even though sometimes when we look back at these situations, I remember thinking for some of the situations, but you're asking me to talk about really mundane tasks. Like, aren't they going to fall asleep? It actually isn't. When you've got it in this story format, this is Hollywood on a page. So, I use my Lord of the Rings reference, so spare me the geek references, right? But if we all sat there about 9 hours of 3 of the Lord of the Rings movies, and really, it was because we watched what they did. It was the actions that they took. We didn't look, unless you watched the follow-up movies, but, the first movies, they didn't just sit around a table and go, yes, we got this ring. Okay, well, what should we do about it? Well, we could walk over that one mountain. We could go through it, or we could go under it. We could try to go over it. They didn't talk about it, they did it. They did it. And, it could have been just, hey, we just walked for like a lot of miles to go to this fire pit to throw this ring in. Well, that's one way to tell it. But to be able to say, to me, immediately when you say, our task was to double the amount of images processing, already it's like, well, I want to hear about that. How do you have to do that? That sounds tough. And I want to hear the mundane details that might go into that. We found that one person, the way that they were saving a file, you could actually save that. It saved time saving it a different way onto a different drive because, and we realized if we could shave off 0.2 seconds off of every file saved, that could increase our output. That's the next place you can go with it, right? So, yeah, you can put a lot into that, and then you can say the result was we actually got to 1,500 images a day. So when we present that, we understand the task was to double it to 2,000. Everybody was very pleased that we actually got to 1,500, and we found out they were shocked that we could even get to 1,500. So, and think about that. Now, if at the end of the day, if you did go to the powers that be and they said, yeah, 1,500 isn't cutting it, that is not okay, well, you may not want to share that part of the interview, because is that 100% relevant? That doesn't matter. So, always think about that too. There's not every single aspect of the story, so there's not time to do that too. So, does that help? Does that help everybody else in hearing that example? Okay, so here's what I'm going to have you do. It's time to work with a friend. So everybody in the room is a good person to work with. So if there's somebody that you haven't worked with in this room, and there's somebody you don't know as well as someone else, I would encourage you to actually connect with that person. And then what you're going to do is I'm going to have one person just go through their story, and we're not going to provide any feedback. You're just going to be a sounding board. Then I'm going to have the next person go through their story, and then I'm going to have you do that again without providing any feedback. and it's going to feel weird. Will you try it with me? Okay, trust me, there's methodology to the madness. Okay, so find a partner, please, and then I'm going to give you a cue on when to start. So we're going to do some practicing of these stories. What I won't do, I will not make you come up to the room and share stories. So that's what I'm going to do. All right. Great. So what I'm going to do is decide on your team who's going to tell their story first. So make sure to decide who's going to do that. The other person, I want you to be the interviewer and read them the question like you're interviewing them. So if my partner had picked the first one, my job as the interviewer, I would just say, tell me about a time that you exhibited leadership. And then I would just let them answer. I'd also like you to try putting on your fabulous pastoral counseling faces and hats where you're not giving massive reaction to what they're saying. So if it's the story that we're working with, and it's like we were tasked to double the amount of images, don't go, oh, double, wow, hey, and as you're telling the story, don't go, oh, wow, yeah, Don't give feedback, because that feedback is actually putting judgment on that story, and it's just let them tell their story. Because we are all so trained at following people's cues. If we get the slightest indication that we think that somebody likes something, we're going to take it and run with it, and they might leave out a whole set of information that's really interesting. So just listen to their story. Just listen to their story. Person telling the story, just go with it. If it starts to fall apart, just act like it's an interview. Don't go, okay, I totally screwed up. Okay, hang on. Let me start over. Because you wouldn't do that in an interview. You would in your mind go, I am completely screwing up. I can't believe this is happening. I'm going to pause for a second and smile. So if I can go back for a second. Here, so just pretend it's an interview. Use this as your time for interview. All right, so I'm going to give you just a couple minutes to tell that story. And we'll see if we're done. If you're not done, then we'll go backwards and work from there. All right, so you know who your interviewer is? Raise your hand if you're the interviewer. Who's the interviewer? All right, that's the question asker. All right, which question are you asking your interviewee? Do you know which one you're asking them? Which one do they want you to ask you? Okay. Please ask your question beginning now. Okay, in time. So I'm going to cut you off in the middle of your sentence. All right, so just pause there. Now could the other person, the person who is listening, the interviewer, could you tell them which question you want them to ask you and try your story. On your mark, get set, go. And time. Okay, the second time you go through this, I'm going to shorten your time a little bit. Okay, don't feel totally rushed, but do make sure you're briefly saying situation, briefly saying task. The majority of your time is spent on the actions, and at the very end, I'm going to say time to wrap up. You need to jump to results if you aren't there yet. Does that sound good? One other point. If you are currently feeling like you need to explain things, sometimes people will say, well, I had students who worked for Lockheed Martin. So they would say, what do you know about aeronautical engineering? I would say, well, I don't know anything about aeronautical engineering. Okay, well, something you need to know is that when a plane is flying, nope. Stories have to be universal. So don't feel like you have to give lots of background on, here's what you have to understand about this organization. Organizations are organizations, regardless of all the other filters that you put on top of them. People are people, organizations are organizations. So if you find yourself feeling like without a lot of background, people would understand the situation, just drop all that background for the time being. and let the person hear your story without those explanations. Again, method to the madness, just trust me on it for just a couple minutes. All right, so if the first person would tell their story again, if the interviewer, if you would ask them their question again, starting now. Time. All right. Switch roles, please. Please ask the other person their question, starting now. And time. Okay. So, I wanted you to tell your stories twice because sometimes they change, sometimes they shorten, sometimes new chunks of information get added to them. So this exercise of just going back and forth and repeating it without a lot of comment yet from somebody else, that's for you to sort of hear your story put out there. Now, the thing that I would ask is, could you talk to each other about what parts of the story did you like? What questions do you have for the person? You know, after somebody tells a story, like I have a number of questions for you about the archiving project. Just curiosity more than anything. So ask the person that you're working with just questions about that whole situation and see what other things come to mind for you that were a part of it. And then feel free, after you've asked that person to talk about it, ask them, you know, would you be open to a suggestion? And then if they say yes, give them a suggestion. Say, you know, the part of your story I really like is when you talk about this. Like that's the part where, yeah, I'm with you. Go take that ring and walk across the mountain and throw it in the fire. Like that part was where I wanted to know more. Yeah, we're still not at the fire yet. I know you're ready to go. Exactly, we're not there yet. So please have a dialogue with your partner about their stories. Okay, so I'm now going to hand you, and I'll hand it up so I know you're going to want to read it. This is just a standard interview format. So I know all of you have interviewed somewhere at some point. It's not as though it's true today. It's not as though you've never ever been through an interview, but I always think every time you apply for a new job and you get asked to go to an interview, you get that slight panic of, I have no idea what's going to happen and what they're going to ask me. So I like the idea of feeling like you're prepared of this is the direction it could go. This is where it could go. So this little standard interview format, this is also something for you to tuck away if somebody says, hey, can you interview this candidate? That I can, because I have a sheet that will show me how. So the first thing that a person often asks you to do, you come into the interview, they shake hands and say, hi, I'm Ann. Hi, great to meet you. Excellent. And then they say, okay, so can you walk me through your resume? Why are they saying that? They don't know what to ask. Yep. Why are they asking you to walk them through their resume? What are the reasons?
Want to see what you checked in for.
They want to see maybe what you think is important. Yeah?
Checking for inconsistency.
Check for any inconsistencies? Sure. You fabricated. You know what the number one reason is? They have not read your resume yet.
Oh, okay.
Right? How much time would you, even right now, if they said, we're interviewing, a faculty member here at Canada, we'd love for you to come in and look at the candidate, there's a really good chance you'll be handed the resume on your way in to go talk to that person. So typically the first question asked when you could sit down is either, great, can you walk me through your resume? Or they'll go, tell us about yourself. And then they sit back and wait, right? Because from there they'll gather, what direction do we take this? Where do we go? And like you said, what are the things you bring up? The beauty in that initial question at the beginning of the interview, you get to put on the table items you'd like to discuss. So, I always tell students, you're building a toolbox. So basically, you're going to pick out the things that you want. You could also call it a gift basket. So if I want to talk about my experience in the evening MBA program, then I'm going to highlight that as something on my resume. Here's my resume. Thank you for asking. I'd love to walk you through my resume. So you'll see that my background in education involves an undergraduate degree in upper performance and then a master's degree in organizational leadership. So I've combined that throughout my career to be able to create left-brain approaches to solve all sorts of different problems. I currently do that at Emory University, working at the Business School and Career Services. Had a very interesting experience with evening MBA students who were returning either from careers or in the midst of careers, looking for new direction in their careers. I also, as you will see, worked in advertising for 12 years and really honed my communication and conflict resolution skills in that field. What gifts did I just put on the table for you? What are you going to ask me about now? What do you want to hear about?
Evening students.
Evening students, right? There you go. If you want to run with evening students, we're going to run with evening students, right? There we go. So then any question that you ask me from that, I need to make sure that I have enough stories about that and other things to answer the standard questions in between. But what I've done now is I have guided you towards what I want you to talk about. So I'm in control of that interview, even though they're asking the questions. The next question that often comes up, why our industry, why our sector? Tell me about, Andy, you used to work in advertising. Why do you want to work in higher ed? Gotta have an answer. I want to help people. Yeah, everybody says that. I need something more than that. Okay, because that's lovely, but that isn't going to get the job done. I need more than that. So why this sector? What draws you in with this sector, particularly? Why this, in many ways? Next one is why specifically their organization. So there's the why that particular organization, but then even bigger, why that organization in the scope of where they fit in. Demonstrate that you get where they fit in. Where are they in that whole process? I heard somebody mention, I heard the word refugees. That's huge. I want to work with refugees. Well, there's a million ways you can do that, right? Who's helping them? What sector? Where does it fit in? Is this public? Is it private? Where is that? I found from my experience that I prefer to work in the private sector, working with refugees. I have experience having worked in the public sector with refugees, and I really want to try to be with an organization where we have more flexibility over how we can allocate our resources. There you go. The reason I came to you with this organization is because I think from the projects that I see that you've worked on, it looks like you have creative solutions to ways to help the issues that refugees have coming into the United States. There you go. You just knocked out your first two questions. It sounds like you already kind of know what's going on. So those, be prepared. You're going to be asked those questions, so there's no reason to feel caught off guard because you know they're coming at you. Then the next bullets, tell me about a time you worked on a team, leadership. They may not be that formal. If you interview with Coca-Cola, they're literally going to have a sheet like this that says star, and they have 4 questions like that they have to ask you, and they have to write their answers in the block of what you said about each of those answers. Nobody is that organized. That's just, you don't walk into that situation usually. So have your answers ready to go in that star format. Really pointed point. So often, your story can work for any single one of these. Time that you were successful with the team almost always has a degree of conflict resolution in it, so you could easily flip it on its head and say this is the time when it didn't go well with the team. The thing you don't want to do, and I'd share this from my own personal experience, is only talk about one thing you did. So if I'm getting the sense that you really want to hear about that work with the evening MBA students, I can't pull all of my stories just from evening MBA students. And I can't just talk about maybe a particular project I did with them, even if it is, if I've got answers to all of your questions. I have to take you around the world of my resume and pull from different resources. So that's one thing to watch for. Make sure you just have kind of 4 different things within that. The other thing that they sometimes ask you, and I listed it on this bullet, is what do you do when you're not in class? There's kind of that fine line, as you know. Legally, you can't be asked all kinds of questions. In an interview, you can't ask about your family life. You can't ask your age. They can't ask all kinds of things. But they can say things like, so you've done all this great work with this organization. What do you do in your free time? Be ready with something that you're ready to put on the table. Be ready. I will also caution you, as somebody who is also a musician, even though people think that's super neato cool and super fun, all that screams to them is, do you really want to be doing this, or would you rather just be out there singing? Are you going to be gone a lot because you want to sing? Is your mind ever really going to be here because you do that? So just share appropriately, share professionally, share with these things. Sometimes instead of me saying, well, I'm also a professional musician, I absolutely love singing. I've worked with a variety of different bands, so that's, music is always a part of my life. Rather than saying that, what I try to do is angle it now towards, well, right now I actually sing for a little group. We sing in assisted living facilities. So Veterans Day is actually a day that I go and I typically sing for World War II veterans. And I find it very rewarding. That's a very different description of something that I do that does not sound threatening, does not sound like any day, the record company's going to call and we're going to be jetting off with Beyonce somewhere, because that isn't going to happen, but people don't always know what that means. So have something, have the thing you're willing to put on the table if that comes up. And do be careful of how much you share about kind of personal life, things like that. For the one person that thinks it's amazing that you have the structure of family life that you have, the next person will find it as an impediment. And it is irrelevant. It's irrelevant to whether or not you should be hired for something. So just my words of caution to you. I've seen that in the backsides of interviewing. Yes?
Going through this, I'm kind of trying to find out when, in answering these questions, I could talk about my language skills.
Oh, yes, language skills. Okay. So yes, if you have something like that you definitely want to put on the table, then part of this is it feels a little shameless. You've got to just get it out there. So in one of your stories, you could say, one of the things in working with the team that was beneficial is I'm also fluent in, and you name the language, I'm also fluent in French. So I found that with one of my team members, I was able to have partial conversations in French and it showed that. I would weave it into your stories. I think this is also where, when they say the second to last bullet, why should we hire you? What strengths will you bring to our organization? Sometimes I've even said, if I feel like everything's on the table, I could say, well, I was trained as a musician. You see that for opera performance, so you never know where that may come in. You could put something like that on the table, but make sure it's said. And sometimes it isn't going to be a perfect fit, but it is your job to know what on your resume do people need to know. What are those key things that are going to jump out? The last one, what questions do you have for me? Or second to last bullet, what questions do you have for me? You have to have questions in an interview. Ask me what questions I have for you. Somebody interview me.
What questions do you have for us?
Really, I don't think I have any at this time. You've really answered them as we've gone along in the interview, and it was great to hear about the different programs that Candler has. So I really feel like I got a good idea of what Candler's like. Okay, ask me again.
What questions do you have for us?
Oh, sure. Thank you for asking that. Well, I really feel like I've learned more about the programs at Candler, but can you just tell me, from a perspective of a student, how do most students make the decision of which program they're going to join? No, but see, isn't that a better question? Like it's an actual question?
Yeah.
There's always a layer deeper. So even if you have gone over all of these programs, or you could say, you did such a nice job of describing, I was wondering at the beginning of the interview, how do students decide which degree they're going to apply for? Just one of the things I ask is, did you have a prediction of who you thought would be applying for these degree programs and then what the student population is looking like? How's that, what's the demographic looking like? That's great. Could you, yes, I do have a question. So there are many different schools of theology. What is it that you think makes students pick Candler as the school to go to? What is actually the relationship with the Candlers? I think that's something that we haven't covered in the interview. I'd love to know more about that, about the namesake of the school. I read about who they were in preparation, and they are the blah, 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 and I list who it is, right? But I'd love to hear more about that. Sort of open-ended, but at the same time, you've got to have some question that's in there that's not just, yeah, what are you going to let us know about second round interviews? Yeah. That is another question you need to ask. So after you've asked a question about the organization, the next thing that's part of that is you would say, yes, you know what, I'd love to hear what the next steps will be in the process. And then you're just listening. Usually they don't really know what it is, and they'll say, well, we're going to try to let people know in the next couple weeks if we're going to have a second round, and the timelines always fall apart. They're never what they say they are. Whatever they are, quadruple them. And that's when you may or may not hear about something. The last part on the sheet, this is the scariest part for people, and I'm telling you, is gold. It's liquid gold. You can take it, you can smelt it, you can use it as currency. It's fabulous. This is what nobody does. So we get done with the interview, okay? And here, I'm gonna actually, and have you guys continue to interview me. All right, so we're gonna be done with the interview. So you've already asked if there's any other questions, right? So you're gonna say, I would like you as the interviewer to say, you know, is there anything else? And then I'm gonna say no, and then we're gonna stand up and shake hands.
Okay.
Sound good? Okay, so.
Is there anything else?
No, I really think I've learned everything that I should learn, so thank you.
Great for me.
Great to meet you too. Thanks so much. Thanks so much for having me in. I really appreciate it. Great. That's how we usually end it. We're like, I aced it. Yeah. Cool. All right. Watch this. Just watch this, right? Watch this. Okay. One more time.
Is there anything else?
The only other thing that I'd like to say is I really want this opportunity. And I really hope that if there's any additional information that I can provide about me that helps me become your #1 candidate, I'd love that opportunity because I really want to be part of the team here at Candler. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Great. Have a great day. Thanks. Who are you hiring?
I'm not hiring you.
Right? Just because we showed up and interviewed, that doesn't say that we really want this. We really want this. Think about the things that you've done, the other jobs you've had, the organizations you've been a part of. That person who's like, when can I do this? How can I be a part of this? Hey, can I be here? And you're like, don't have the skill. Just, you're doing great. You know? I love your enthusiasm. Just showing up doesn't say, I really want this job. I put it in quotes. I put it in quotes. All right? Part of the key to putting it in quotes, okay, is, actually this should say, we have to edit it. If I can provide any information about me that helps you make me your top candidate. Because we can't say, if I can provide any information that helps make me the top candidate, I know stuff. So I can bring you industry secrets, I can, right? Not bribes. We're not going into any bribes, right? It's not if there's anything I can do to become the top candidate, here's a 50. That's not at all where we're going. So is there anything else about me that you need to know? Because I want to secure in your mind that I'm your top candidate. Practice this out loud. And at the interview, there isn't often a perfect time. Did you notice that the first time I did the perfect interview thing where I waited? I waited till you stood and you went to shake my hand, right? But instead, after you say something like that, okay, I'm not going to make it awkward. I'm not going to say, I really want this opportunity. So if there's any information about me that I can provide that helps me become the top candidate, I'm happy to provide that. They now feel so weird, right? Like, oh, okay, we're not making decisions right now, so how do we get her out of here? Take that initiative to stand up, to end it. You're going to hire that person. It's going to help. And you're going to, if you can't hire them, you're going to recommend them somewhere else. Okay, those are all my words. Yes?
What if, over the course of an interview, you have determined that there's something about this company,
Yes.
corporation, church, whatever,
Yes.
whoever you are interviewing with, that says, I actually don't want this job.
Correct.
Or
So,
there's something that says, maybe I'm not the fit, maybe I'm really not what they want, and I don't want to go in that direction, I don't want to say that because it's not true.
you have free will. You could leave at any point in time. You truly could. My recommendation is, because worlds are very small, just see the whole thing through the end. Even if it's like, oh my gosh, I have another interview, then I have to sit through lunch, then I've got 3 more interviews. You could learn more if it's big like that, but I would see it through to the end. Use it for yourself. You could say, you know, I haven't tried that story. I wonder how that might go over here. Try something in that interview. Ask a question that you might feel you wouldn't feel comfortable asking in other situations. Like, use it then for yourself as sort of an experience. The other thing with that would be, when you're done, you know, follow up the pure, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to interview with me and tell me more about the company. Then maybe the next day, so 48 hours later, is when I would then send an email to whoever has been the key point person to say, thank you so much for this opportunity, have so enjoyed it, I'm at this time going to withdraw my candidacy for the position. I know you have a strong pool, and I know you're going to find a wonderful candidate, and I'm always happy, if I can ever be of service, please let me know. Does that sound good? Because that does happen. It does happen. You're there to find out if you like this too. Do you want to be there? It's not just, oh, please pick me, please. Because sometimes it is. Sometimes we're in a situation where it's like, you guys bring me in, I'm good. Yeah, exactly. It's like, I'm good. Seriously, I just need a steady check. And now, when is my first paycheck? Is it 30 days or 15 days? Because I really need to know. I mean, there are those times. And if it is that time, then you know what? If they're saying, we're just the kind of company where we need people who just buckle down and don't talk to people and just do their work, then you're like, I am that person. Let me give you an example of a time that I didn't talk to anybody for 6 weeks at a company where I work. I mean, sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do, but most of the time, if you are doing this process where you are reaching out, you're networking with people, and you're looking at these different opportunities and looking at different options, you're not gonna be in that position, because that means you've got this whole job search process rolling, and it's in process, and it's going. This gets a lot easier when you have done that pre-networking. So when you've talked to somebody in a similar organization or at that organization, then when it's question time, you know to avoid certain questions.
Yes.
You know hot buttons. You might know that there's just been some huge thing about company culture that was launched. So then your question can be, I'd love to know more about company culture, and what about professional development for people at the organization? And you might be like, oh, that's so interesting you bring that up. We just launched, and they're super proud of it, and they want to talk about it, and people like people who are the sounding boards, right? People love people who ask them questions about themselves. They couldn't say a thing about that person. It's like, oh, she's great, isn't she wonderful? And all you did was listen to that person talk about them. So it's not bad for them to start talking about them. What other questions with interviews? Yes, sir.
Weaknesses.
Weaknesses. Great question. All right. Ask me the question as the interviewer. Please.
What is your weakness?
It's a very good question. I think the weakness that I would pick for that is sometimes I have a tendency to want to double check work. So I like to go back and make sure that what I have been working on, have I checked all the boxes, have I dotted the T's, dotted the I's, crossed the T's. And so that's something that's really important to me in my work. And I have found that some coworkers don't appreciate it because they think that what I'm doing is evaluating their work. So I think one of my weaknesses is my need to always double and triple check. Ask me it again.
What is your weakness?
It's a hard question, just in general. It's not that I have a lack of weaknesses, but I would say the weakness that something that I was pointed out to me and that I continue to work on is that I have a tendency to want to go back and double check things. So I want to make sure that if we had a number of boxes to check, those are checked, that the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed. But something that was pointed out to me early in my career was that sometimes when I would go back and I would say to somebody, hey, can I take a look at that proposal before we send it to the client? They took that as me doubting their work and not having faith and trust in them. So it was interesting because I realized that out of my need to double check that, I could make other people feel uncomfortable. So I'm so glad that that got pointed out to me early on. So now what I do is, in my way to assure that things are as they should be or as requested, I'll go back to my coworkers and say, hey, I really like being able to double check things. Would you want me to double check any of your work? I'd love for you to double check mine to make sure that I covered everything. And so then by working with somebody to see first, are you comfortable with us double checking each other's work? Certainly they can catch any mistake that I might have made, but that way I'm able to know that we've done a double check and make it more inclusive in the process. See the second answer? Right? Can you ask me one more time?
What is your weakness?
Well, I'd say for a weakness, sometimes it's the double checking. That sometimes if I want to double check a project, I wasn't as aware that that could make other people think that I'm doubting their ability to complete work. And so what I've done now is, I have asked people to look at my work, and I've looked at theirs, and it has just created the most community in our office. We work together now in a way that we have not worked together as well. And I really feel like I've kind of led this whole organization into being able to work really collaboratively. So in many ways, my weakness has become the strength of the organization, right? That just took it too far. Okay, right? Like, you can't turn your strength so far around that it becomes huge, but you also can't bring kryptonite in with you. So you also can't say, because you gotta remember, anything you put on the table, all they're thinking of is that exact word. If I say, wanting to, need, basically I'm aiming at like need for perfection. Oh my gosh, we don't have time for perfection here. She's never gonna get anything completed on time. If I say, well, sometimes, once I miss deadlines, but now I'm better, oh, she's gonna keep missing deadlines. It's a loaded question. It's an awful question. So pick something and make it as mundane as possible, but turn it into someone pointed this out. I agree, I acknowledge it, and here's what I do about it, is no longer an issue to worry about. So does that make sense? Kind of put it through those folds with everything. Great question. What other questions?
How do you balance like professional office quantitative answers with like warmth, friendliness, personable, like I'm doing something meaningful here, but also like I'm trying to do it efficiently.
Right. I'm going to give you the answer that's based on the advice that my father gave me when I moved from marketing into higher education. And my dad said, he said, there's two things that you need to remember. He said, you're moving into higher education. Higher education is always going to be about, are the students getting what they need? I mean, that's going to be primary. You are here to educate students, and that's a mission of a university. He said, but it still takes money and skill to do that. So it's not always about, and the student walked away so thrilled and happy. You've still got to be able to quantify, did you stay on time, in budget, and on task? Now, that said, he also added, just remember that universities are not always known for commending people that can quickly get a task done. They like to take their time with those things. I think you've got to gauge the organization, but if you've ever sat in interviews, even at a university, which is a nonprofit, everybody walks through the door saying, well, I just feel like I want to do something that has more meaning. I want to give back more. And after you sit through a number of those interviews, you really start to think about, well, if that's really the missing piece from your life, you could fulfill that in a million different ways. Why don't you just volunteer on your weekends more severely? Why don't you just add that in? Why don't you just do it if that's something you really want to do? Why does your job every day need to contain that piece of it? So in that balance of what it is, I think you need to give answers that are a few layers deeper for the cause and the why. Why are you really drawn to this? I'm here because I feel like the work I've been able to do so far has only skimmed the surface in where we really could help with this particular issue and eradicate it. I think that the reason that I'm drawn to this organization is I want to help really make a dent in and name that, get under the crust of that. But at the end of the day, every organization has bottom line responsibilities. There's not a single organization out there that doesn't have to report some sort of numbers. And everybody, your volunteers don't have to worry about the numbers. Your volunteers can just come in out of pure goodwill and spirit. You are being brought into an organization and there's still metrics. There's still metrics around it. So I think if you only talk about metrics, it could be too cold, but I think it is sort of a 50-50 balance. I would still say a little bit more 60-40 because when you are interviewing that person, you've got to know they're going to accomplish. Are you going to accomplish, or are you just coming in because you just want to be basically the greeter of the organization and be warm to help people, which is needed, but you got to get stuff done. So gauge the organization. Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
That's a little bit off topic, but, and, okay, so let me see how to phrase it. All right, so I've been in one company for like the last 18 years, so I've gotten used to it, culture, used to the types of people I work with, and so all of this is a huge shift for me. And I'm just wondering if your office or maybe the graduate office at Emory, is there something that kind of helps with, I don't want to use the word rebranding because it's a little bit more than, I'm just having like a difficult time wrapping my mind around a totally new environment, totally new people, new culture, new, and so I feel like sometimes I'm awkward. But I don't know if like other people, she's awkward. So I don't know if it's just I feel awkward or if I'm actually really am awkward. You know what I'm saying?
If you're self-aware, when you're self-aware, you're going to feel awkward in any new situation. If you're not self-aware, you're like, I own this place. This is great. This is awesome, right? How do you guys do it? That's stupid. You should do it this way, right? And that's not how any of you are. So because you're self-aware, I would say think about your experience of acclimating here into Emory. This was a brand new experience for everybody. Maybe not. Maybe some of you have gone through master's degree programs before, but for most people, this was stepping into a very different world from the world that you have been in. Part of it is taking time. Part of it is trusting the process of the new organization, and also remembering everybody's in the same boat. So now that I was just asked the question of how long have I been at Emory. Now that I've been at Emory for 10 years, I know the business school so well that anytime I go to a meeting anywhere else on campus, I have to remember things aren't done. That's not Emory. That's just the business school at Emory, but that's not Emory. So I even have to put on a different hat for that when I go to a different part of this organization. So I think everybody does experience that. I would say this is where talking to people who work at those companies, that networking, that informational interviewing, tell me what this culture is like, what is it? All you're ever going to get is a slight glimpse into what it might be like, and we all take bets on it and go from there when we take our next job. But you're never going to get fully, you're never going to have, if you're seeking the, I have found my 100% fit, you're never going to go anywhere. Because you're never going to get that fit till you get in. Till you get in and you find your niche within it and you find where you're a part of it. But I think it's honest and it's brave to say, yes, I have a concern about, is this going to be the right fit? And it may not be the first job you get after a big change like this, may not be the job you have for the next 20 years. That's okay. That's fine. But you've got to try something to get it all rolling and find where that fit is and get to that place. Then you can stay somewhere for 10 years. You can stay for 18 again and see where that is, and you can run the course. Yes.
Specifically about me,
Okay.
I know it doesn't fit in most places. So,
That's,
what's your suggestion?
you need to walk in as who you are. You need to walk in as who you are. Unless it is something that it just doesn't matter one way or the other to you, then if you want to conform to some other culture, conform. But if it's important and it's a part of who you are, then you shouldn't be walking in any differently than how you are. Absolutely. It's a very good question. All right. Did they get the time? What time are we on?
It is 12:29.
12:29, look at that, 1 minute left. I hope this has been helpful for you. Yes, gotten some good things. All I can say, practice, practice, practice. You have so many great people to practice with. Having just a sounding board, and I know we all feel really stupid, when we don't feel 100% prepared, we don't want anybody to know. Give me a break, okay? Enough. I'm not even going to hear that from any of you. Go practice with each other. You don't have time to do this. You don't have time to book 2 hours with somebody, literally say, oh my gosh, okay, you looked up and it seems like you're taking a break from your studies. Can I run one of my star stories by you and spend 5 minutes with that person and say, okay, it's been 5 minutes, I'm going to walk away. A little bit, a lot. All of this stuff is exercise. You cannot run the marathon practicing the night before. A little bit you're not going to notice. You're not going to feel like you're making any progress. This is also a very defeating process, right? You're going to have a lot more no than you're going to have a lot more yes. You know that, so that you don't get to be sad about it. All right? This is where being a musician helps, because you hear a lot. You go to an audition, and you get up there, and I remember the first time I auditioned somewhere, and they said, yeah, I announced my song, and I nodded to my accompanist, and I sang my 4 measures, and I heard, thank you. And I didn't even know what that meant. It was like, oh, they liked me. Okay, and I knew like that I was singing, just, you can leave now. And I cried as soon as I got off stage. I mean, there's more rejection than there's going to be positive. That's the job process. But try to look at it as everybody you connect with, you have a chance of doing something nice for that person. They have a chance for yours. It may be that you contact an organization and say, I'm not a cultural fit, you know who is? You should go pursue that organization. You may be helping other people in that search. However you need to frame this so that you can get it done. Frame it that way. And all those things are true. It always comes back to us. So,
One other question.
Yes.
Is how to dress for an interview.
okay.
Very proud.
When I left marketing and I had corporate clients, I took all of my suits very proudly to Goodwill. And I said, I'm never putting a suit on ever again. That's my one criteria for what goes on for the rest of my life. I'm never dressing in corporate gear ever again. I kind of, have some things that work for that. I put on a suit when I go to interview places. I put on a suit, even if they're in jeans, even if it's the coolest tip, even if it's Google that you walk into. I still would put on a suit because I don't work there yet. And they need to see you at, use Sunday best here. They need to see you at your Sunday best, right? You need to be in your Sunday best. Because quite honestly, everybody knows that the interview you're at the best and it's going to decline from there. So best that you walk in and you're all coiffed and you're ready to go, and they know if you regress from there, it's still going to be okay. So I would always say suit. Sometimes they'll say, I've interviewed places like ad agencies, and they're like, oh goodness, look at you. Oh, I feel like a slob, I'm in jeans. They'll say, hey, if you come back for a second round, seriously, you can be casual. I'm still not showing up in jeans. I'd show up like this. I'd show up like this, but I wouldn't show up actually casual at that point. First day of work, I'd show up totally casual because that first day sets the precedent for expectations. So arrive at 9, don't arrive too early, and do not stay late your first day. That's my other piece of advice for you. Yes, it sets precedent. So, all right. Well, please connect with me on LinkedIn if you haven't. Work with each other, and I'm pretty sure I'll be back at some point next year. So, yeah. All right. Thank you.
The preceding program is copyrighted by Emory University.